Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Great. Thank you, Ricky, for the introduction, and thank you for the invite and to give me the opportunity to speak today. I'll talk on Bitcoin's role as collateral in real estate development, and the purpose is, I believe, next to its use as money, which includes being a medium of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account, Bitcoin's role as collateral in the transition phase onto a Bitcoin standard, as long as fiat interest rates rise slower than Bitcoin's purchasing power, is very interesting, and this is something that Max and his team at HODL and Debify have obviously understood so well. So when I first heard about Bitcoin, I was studying philosophy and ethics at university, and I remember this day, actually until today, I was standing behind a friend of mine, and he was sending money across the globe, and I didn't really understand what was going on, but I did understand that I just witnessed something that might change the course of humanity. And shortly after, I wrote my master thesis about Bitcoin, studying financial economics and its potential as money. After I joined the real estate industry, and working in the real estate industry really allowed me to understand the problems of our monetary system and the potential of Bitcoin. So what you see here is the relevance of housing, the search for affordable housing in Google Trends in the US. And this is something that you can observe worldwide. People are in desperate need of affordable housing. One of the biggest issues of the fiat system is that people use real estate as a scarce and speculative investment vehicle to hedge against inflation. This drives up the cost of housing, and it drives up the cost of living significantly. And Bitcoin, as a deflationary force, has the potential to provide affordable housing for 3 reasons. I will mention 2 reasons now, and then the 3rd reason later on in my presentation. So obviously, for those who hold Bitcoin, everything becomes cheaper over time, because Bitcoin is a disinflationary currency, absolutely scarce. It's engineered to increase in value over time forever, while fiat is designed to be debased. And secondly, since Bitcoin is a superior store of value to real estate, people can save in Bitcoin by default. They don't need to invest in real estate to outperform inflation. And we can assume there will be less drastic price increases in real estate, and the price of real estate will be recalibrated closer to its utility value. And what you see here is that since 1971, 15th of August, when US President Richard Nixon announced that the US would abandon the convertibility of fiat currency into gold at a fixed rate, and he ended the quasi-gold standard was existent since 1944, since the Bretton Woods Agreement, housing has grown exponentially in value, and you can pretty much see that the nominal rise in real estate reflects the debasement of fiat currency. And the yellow line that you see here is the M2 monetary supply that has grown at a CAGR, at a compound annual growth rate of around 6.8%, very closely followed by housing, residential real estate at 5.7%, which is followed by the commercial real estate price index, which has increased year over year of 4.4% since 1971. So what happened is, real estate has accrued a substantial monetary premium, which is representative of its use as money, especially of its use as a store of value, a form of function of money that is no longer possible because of inflation, monetary inflation that has decimated people's purchasing power. So real estate has turned into the #1 store of value in the world. There are different estimates. McKinsey estimated in 2019 that around 67% of the world's wealth is stored in real estate. And we Bitcoiners, there's a graph by Jesse Myers that is being used by Bitcoiners quite frequently and that I really like. And he suggests that around 330 trillion are stored in real estate. So that is a substantial amount. And I believe that Bitcoin presents a solution to the housing crisis. The superiority of Bitcoin becomes obvious when you look at the price, the average price of a home in the US. In 2016, it was around 1,000 BTC, and today it's around around 10 Bitcoin. That's the average price for a home in the US measured in Bitcoin. And within the scope of the fiat system, in the past, real estate has been one of the best options to preserve wealth. But if you really think about it, it's actually a very bad store of value. It's inaccessible, it's illiquid, it's very easy to destroy, easy to tax, and it's immobile. So in German, real estate is translated into Immobilie, which literally means to be immobile. Whereas Bitcoin is a purpose-built money for the digital age. It's absolutely scarce, it's permissionless, it's programmable, it's liquid, and it's highly mobile. So we can assume that people will prefer saving in Bitcoin rather than having to invest in real estate, which should mean that real estate will go to its utility value, especially for those individuals that hold Bitcoin. And what's the conclusion? What can we draw from this? Basically, this is a great process for the market, especially for consumers and for tenants who have been burdened with increasing living expenses. But it does pose a problem for the real estate development sector, because whatever you think about it, the increase in nominal value of real estate pretty much represents the profit margin of a real estate developer. And as the speculation that is currently happening in real estate will move over into Bitcoin, real estate and real estate development will become a business again. You need to provide a service to the market, like housing, and you receive rent in return. But in order to survive and thrive for a time where real estate may no longer dominate, I believe that real estate developers have to adopt innovative production methods like 3D printing and pre-manufactured housing parts to drive down the cost of construction, but they also need to utilize Bitcoin, and especially as a store of value. And for some of you that have listened a few weeks ago in Prague, I gave a presentation on Bitcoin strategies for real estate investors. And today I want to focus on the last bullet point here on the left-hand side, include Bitcoin in financing. I quickly explain what I mean by it. Then I go to the theoretical theoretical benefits, and then I show a practical example that we backtested. So the idea is the following. Let's imagine you're a bank and you give out a $10 million loan to a real estate developer. What you could do, instead of giving 10 million, you give out 11 million, and the real estate developer uses the extra million to buy Bitcoin. So 9% of the loan are directed towards Bitcoin, and 91% of the loan are directed towards real estate development. And what this means is, now I'm starting with the third point of why real estate can become affordable through Bitcoin. By using Bitcoin as a store of value, landlords and real estate developers, they are not slowly dependent on raising rents to counterbalance inflation. The increase in the purchasing power of Bitcoin works as a natural inflation hedge. And quite frankly, it also protects against a scenario where the monetary premium that sits in real estate flows into Bitcoin. And generally speaking, it acts as an inflation hedge to counterbalance the increased CapEx, maintenance costs, and construction costs. It obviously also increases the creditworthiness of a company. By introducing Bitcoin on the balance sheet of a real estate developer, you introduce a novel form of capital that increases over time, because Bitcoin is an absolutely scarce digital currency, disinflationary, that increases in purchasing power over time forever. Forever as humanity stays reproducing and productive. That creates more resilience within a company. Bitcoin is an extremely resilient system, and it's anti-fragile, and it's proved its resilience over time. And it also allows you to protect yourself against property confiscation, because the past has shown when we go through a scenario of hyperinflation, the state usually tries to capture available value. And it does so through taxes, and it also, as we have learned in Germany, it does so through confiscation. So if you keep possession of the Bitcoin keys, you are able to leave a country in case you're a minority that, for example, is persecuted and needs to protect its productivity. And for lending purposes, you can use multi-signature solutions like Debify. And if you're a company, you can use multi-institutional custodians like OnRep that give you some geopolitical arbitrage. And lastly, something I would like to talk about is default protection. Because if you think about it from the perspective of a lender, if you give somebody a loan and you include Bitcoin in the loan, you hedge yourself in that business going bankrupt. Because if the Bitcoin are properly secured, even if the business goes bankrupt, the Bitcoin will increase in purchasing power. And this allows a lender to hedge themselves against the borrower defaulting. And Bitcoin is also much easier to liquidate. It trades 24/7, 365 days of the year. This also holds an advantage for the borrower, and I quickly want to give a real-life example of a friend of mine that I think was extremely smart. So he bought a furniture company in Germany that went bust because of the interest heights. Recently, the real estate industry in Europe is in a crisis. The business was worth around 2 million euro, and the bank said you can buy it for 300,000 euro, and we'll give you a loan. He took a $350,000 loan. He bought the business for 300,000, and he took the rest, the 50,000, and bought Bitcoin to hedge himself against that business going completely bust. And I think that was a pretty good idea. And the dynamics that I'm describing here are relevant in most industries, so I can really imagine that Bitcoin is going to become a part of credit products for every industry. And now I'd like to run you through a practical example. I quickly explain what we see here, and then I explain the differences here. So for purposes of simplification, we took a $10 million residential real estate project, and then we took a $10 million investment project, of which 9 million were directed towards the acquisition of real estate and 1 million directed towards the acquisition of Bitcoin. And the purpose of this is I want to show how the addition of Bitcoin into business structure, rather it's real estate development or generally speaking actually doesn't matter, increases the financial resilience and the creditworthiness of a company. So on the left-hand side here, you see we started in the year 2019 and we took the US Bureau of Statistics numbers for Q4 of each year, and then we added the incremental decrease or increase to the previous year. And you can see in 2019, we started with a $10 million project that increased to 2021 to 12.9 million. Why did it increase so much? There was COVID, where about 25% of the US dollar in existence were supplied to the market. And then we have a slight increase until the year 2024 to 13 million. So the total value increase is 30%, and the year-on-year growth is 5.4%, slightly less than the average growth since 1971. Even though the data set is very small, I do believe it somehow shows that real estate has completed its adoption cycle as a store of value, and you will see that Bitcoin is a much superior store of value because it's an engineered monetary savings technology. So now I'd like to compare it with a $10 million investment project, of which 9 million were directed towards real estate and 1 million towards the acquisition of Bitcoin. So in the first year, you can see we have a $10 million project that quickly grows in the second year to 13.3 million. So it's already worth more than the real estate project in the 6th year. Towards the end, in the 6th year, it is worth 20.4 million, which we compare to just a real estate project worth 13 million. And which is also interesting for you guys to know is, obviously the year 2024 is not over. So we took the year growth of real estate and Bitcoin until 1st of July. But if we would wait till the end of the year, this would even look a bit more favorable towards Bitcoin because we are currently in the early innings of a bull market, even though I believe potentially because of the macro conditions, this bull market will not be as great as we want it to be. We can expect Bitcoin to increase slightly more till the end of the year. And the total value increase here is around 105% in the 6th year, which is 3 times as much. And the year-on-year growth is 15.4%, which is made of 54% growth in Bitcoin and 5.4% in real estate. And as you can see in the 6th year, the Bitcoin in the company structure already make up 43% of the whole investment project. So if we would continue over time in the 10th, 12th, 13th, 4th year, at some point you won't even see the part the gray part, which represents the value of real estate, because Bitcoin grows in value much faster. And I believe this is a good thing, because this will allow the real estate developer, the landlord, to not be dependent on increasing rents all the time and then increasing living expenses for the tenant. And also, as you go along and as the gap between the existing debt and the nominal value of the real estate increases, as a real estate developer, you can do a little Michael Saylor move where you refi the untapped equity within the real estate structure to buy Bitcoin with it. Because if you think about it, MicroStrategy is a company that produces cash flow, has a similar dynamic to a real estate project that produces cash flow. You can borrow against it, keep the Bitcoin long term, pay back the debt with the cash flow. And I want to give a shout out to G Sovereignty and his Nost Rocket project. And as a concluding point, I'd like to emphasize that Bitcoin not only enables the separation of money and state, but it also allows the separation of business of the state. And by embracing Bitcoin-based credit products, we can help businesses to become more independent of the inflationary fiat system, and by doing that, we can help them to be more resilient and provide better and more affordable products to the market. And something else that we will allow is, if the system will continue as it does right now, I don't want to be a doomsayer, but when 20 or 30 years' time, we will see a lot of societies collapsing, we'll see more war as we do right now, and as a societal collapse maybe occurs, and the nominal value of all the assets in the world will collapse as well, because the currency is going to be inflated to an extent where a real estate project might be worth nothing, but it's going to be nothing in fiat, but it's going to be repriced in Bitcoin. And if you already hold Bitcoin in the same entity that holds a business, you hedge yourself against societal collapse, and we can allow businesses and entrepreneurs to continue to provide services to the market. And I believe that the role of the entrepreneur and the role of businesses in this transition phase onto a Bitcoin standard is very, very important. Okay, so just lastly, if you'd like to keep up with my writing, I provided a QR code down there that you can scan. You can find me on Nostra at Leon Wankum, and I also write a newsletter on leonwankum.substack.com, where I share my writing. Predominantly at the moment, I write about real estate and Bitcoin, but I also write about philosophy, ethics, and Austrian economics, generally speaking. And I'm in the process of writing a book by the name of Digital Real Estate, which will explain why Bitcoin is a superior store of value, superior collateral, what this means for the real estate industry, how do real estate developers deal with it, and what are the effects on interest rates, the investment landscape, the housing market, and society as a whole. If we have some time left, I actually like to do a Q&A and take some questions or constructive criticism. If anyone here has a question.
I'll help you with that. Yes, there is a hand right there.
Great speech, thank you. Do you see banks being able to use excess leverage? So, you know, the value of the property is 100. Will the bank loan 110, or will you need to have an equity component in that transaction?
Yeah, you probably need to, for sure. I mean, I think the first banks are starting to realize the potential of this strategy, I guess. But they need to, I don't know if I understand your question correctly, but they need to over-collateralize and include an equity component, because from their perspective, Bitcoin still carries risk. Where from my perspective, Bitcoin does not carry risk, or at least not as much risk as a regular asset that's tied to the fiat system. But from the perspective of a bank that's regulated, it obviously does.
So instead of, like you gave the CAGR for Bitcoin investments being like 54%. So instead of just relating it to, like if you see that 5.4 and 54%.
Yes.
So instead of putting collateral of say 10% in Bitcoin, why not increase the numbers? And is there any other way that you have analyzed, apart from real estate, where a business can be structured in a way that Bitcoin completely goes in profit and the CAGR of the company becomes higher with that? Because, yeah, 15% sounds great, but it's not 54%. And is there a way where you can structure a business which would give probably 40, 50, 70% ROI? And that's sustainable, because we all know like 40% CAGR, like if someone buys $10 Bitcoin every day, they would average around over 45 to 50% CAGR for 5 years. So is there a way which can be structured?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your question. It's a very good question. This is a very oversimplified example in order to help people and also banks understand the idea behind this and the potential of including Bitcoin in financing, generally speaking. But to answer your question, I believe yes. And the way to do it is that you also create cash flow that is connected with Bitcoin. You either sweep the cash flow right into Bitcoin, or you create a business that generates cash flow in Bitcoin. I think that would be the way to do it. And you could ask people obviously to pay rent in Bitcoin, but it's very difficult. I mean, personally speaking, we don't have a single tenant. We have a couple of hundred apartments that we are managing that wants to pay in Bitcoin, at the moment at least. Yeah.
Don't be shy. I guess that's it then.
I think there's one.
Oh, there's one more?
Yeah.
Do you think that in 5 years we can trade real estate on the blockchain?
Say it again, sorry.
Do you think that in 5 years from now we can create real estate on the blockchain in Argentina, El Salvador, anywhere?
To write real estate on the blockchain?
Trade, sell my house on the blockchain as a token.
I mean, I personally, like, technically is one point, but personally I believe rather than buying a tokenized asset that has third-party risk, I would just buy Bitcoin. So I think from the perspective of a bank, this whole, or like, let's say that I take the position of BlackRock. The tokenization of real-world assets makes sense because I can exercise control and I create another revenue stream. But from the perspective of an investor, I just buy Bitcoin. And if you want to sell your property, I would just sell the property and buy Bitcoin with it, rather than selling it as a tokenized asset, because it always involves third-party risk. And I think the purpose of Bitcoin is to clear out the third-party risk. So therefore, I'm not really a fan of tokenizing real-world assets.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Leon, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Leon. Thank you.